Well, hello internet, my name is Xander and it's Halloween. In spirit of Halloween, I've decided I'm going to do top 5 creepypasta list. What is a creepypasta, you ask? A creepypasta is a creepy story on the internet. Basically, the internet's equivalent of a ghost fire camp story thingy. Anyways, my top 5 favorite creepypastas. SCP stands for Secure, Contain and Protect. It's supposedly an organization that captures these weird creatures and these weird artifacts that possess harm to humankind. Now the thing that I find creepy about this organization is definitely the stuff that they find. Here is a description of something they found. SCP-1486, or known as Benny, is a children's doll that is highly damaged and missing its right arm. If a couple consisting of a man and a woman have intercourse within 50 meters of SCP-1486, Benny will disappear and appear in the woman's womb at 0.1 its original size, even if contraception was being used. It will also slowly grow at the same rate a normal fetus does, but it will still retain its normal form, which will cause damage to the woman's uterus, rendering her infertile. Once SCP-1486 is born, it will immediately try to breastfeed. SCP-1486 can also talk and will become immediately hostile and attack people near its new mother. But I honestly can't see the difference between a normal baby and Benny. The next creepypasta is more of a tale than a description, so get prepared to hear a bedtime story. In the dark of night, I advise you to not look out your window. When you look out a dark window, you see everything that you feared, everything that you ever dreaded. The impossible is possible and exists within the dark void. Nothing can be seen, but everything can be imagined. Ridiculous and surreal faces look as if they know your deepest, darkest secrets. Decaying heads of the damned moan and grunt, and all your greatest fears do in fact exist out there. But don't worry, you're safe. It's merely a window. You can only see them, but they can't get to you in your dimension. But there is one thing. You are vulnerable, out there in the open. What do I mean, you ask? Your reflection. It allows you to coexist with them. Just don't blink. In 1983, a group of scientists theorized that if a human had no access to the senses or ways to perceive stimuli, the person would be able to perceive the presence of God. An elderly man that claimed to have nothing to live for became the first and only test subject for this experiment. The scientists performed a complex operation on the man to remove his senses. After the operation, the subject couldn't see, hear, taste, smell or feel. It could no longer sense the outside world. The scientists monitored the test subject closely. After a couple of days, the subject claimed to hear hushed voices inside his head, but the scientists ignored this claim. 2 days later, the man cried out that he could hear his dead wife speaking to him. He then started to mumble out things that only the scientist's relatives would have known. After a week, the subject became distressed because his mind was being bombarded with voices, and he begged the scientists for sedatives so that he could escape the voices by sleeping. When the subject fell asleep, he started to have severe night terrors. A day later, the subject tried to pull out one of his non-functioning eyes as an attempt to distract himself with pain, because the voices began to talk about hell, the end of the world, and they were claiming that there was no heaven, no forgiveness. The subject begged to be killed, but the scientist refused, so the subject tried to kill himself, and the scientist had to restrain him. The subject was crying so much during his restraint that the scientist had to keep him hydrated. One day, the subject stopped crying and looked directly at one of the scientists, despite being blind. The subject then said, "I have spoken with God, and He has abandoned us." The subject died directly afterwards. In January 2006 in New York, The patient of a well-known psychiatrist draws the face of a man that has been repeatedly appearing in her dreams. On more than one occasion that man has given advice on her private life. The woman swears she has never met the man in her life. The portrait lies forgotten on the psychiatrist's desk for a few days until one day another patient recognizes that face and says that the man has often visited him in his dreams. He also claims that he has never met the man in his waking life. The psychiatrist decides to send the portrait to some of his colleagues that have patients with recurrent dreams. Within a few months, 4 patients recognize the man as a frequent presence in their own dreams. All the patients refer to him as this man. From January 2006 until today, at least 2,000 people have claimed that they have seen this man in their dreams, in many cities all over the world. At the moment, there is no certain relation or common trait among the people that have dreamt of seeing this man. Moreover, no living man has ever been recognized as resembling the man or the portrait by the people who have seen this man in their dreams. Now here's a creepy thing. There's actually a website dedicated to the sightings of this man. Actual people, are claiming that they've met this man in their dreams. And on this website, they tell about the experiences of meeting this man and how this man has influenced their lives. So, have you ever seen this man in your dream? In the late 1940s, Russian researchers were conducting an experiment of trying to keep people awake for 30 days using a gas-based stimulant. There were only microphones and glass portals used by the researchers. The subjects were World War II prisoners, and they only accepted because they were told that they would be freed if they completed the experiment. After 5 days, the subjects began to become extremely paranoid and began to whisper into the microphones. After 9 days, one of them ran around screaming for 3 hours straight. The subjects then began to tear the pages of books that they were given to read and covered them in feces. They then pasted the glass portals closed with the pages. The whispering also stopped. After 3 more days, the researchers were worried that the test subjects were either dead or vegetables. To confirm if the subjects were even alive, the researchers announced that they were going to open the doors just to check the microphones, and that the subjects must lie flat on the back or they will be shot. If the subject complied, one of them would be granted the freedom. One of the subjects whispered into the microphones, "We no longer want to be freed." The researchers came to the conclusion that they would open the doors at midnight on the 15th day. When the gas stopped being pumped into the chamber, the subjects began to start pleading that the gas would be turned back on so that they could stay awake. Soldiers were sent in to get the subjects, and what the soldiers saw was terrifying. One of the 5 test subjects was dead and hardly intact. There was chunks of meat from the dead stuffed into the drainage pipes in the middle of the chamber. All of the remaining subjects also had chunks missing from their bodies. These wounds were self-inflicted, and it looked like the subjects were eating their own flesh. Many of the soldiers refused to go back in. The soldiers that remained inside had to put up a big fight in order to restrain the subjects. In the struggle, a couple of soldiers were killed, and so was one of the test subjects. The 3 remaining test subjects were sent to hospital for medical attention. The doctors had to operate on the subjects while they were awake because the subjects refused to go under anesthetics. The military put the subjects back into the chamber. One of the remaining subjects died, so the researchers were sent in to inspect. Out of fear, a fight broke out between the researchers and commander, and only one of the test subjects and one of the researchers survived the bloodbath. The researcher aimed his gun at the test subject and demanded to know who he was. The subject replied,
"Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be set free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into a silence and paralysis when you go to a nocturnal haven where we cannot tread."
The researcher aimed at the subject's heart and fired, and the subject weakly choked out.
So, nearly free.
So those were my top 5 favorite creepypastas. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more, you can press a big red button that says subscribe. Tell me in the comments below what is your favorite creepypasta, and if you haven't seen creepypastas before this video, tell me which one you thought was the creepiest. Well, thanks for watching. This is Zonda, signing off.